Hey, spotlight seekers! You've just stepped into the glam zone where every whisper becomes a headline and no secret stays safe for long. Welcome to Tea Talk Time with me, your ultimate insider, Mia. Today we're serving up the juiciest scoops from the Diddy Sean Combs trial. So buckle up because the tea is piping and the shade is real. Before we pour it all out, don't forget to hit that like button, smash subscribe, and send this to your gossip-loving gang. The more, the messier. And we love a little chaos, don't we? This channel, it's not just mine. It's our backstage pass to the drama behind the glitz. And once we hit monetization, you already know gift card giveaways are coming in hot every month as my thank you to you, my day one fam. All right, ring lights on, cameras rolling. It's time to stir the pot with class. Okay, let's unpack this 4 intense days of testimony from Cassie Ventura just wrapped up in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. And you can just imagine the atmosphere in that courtroom, the weight of these allegations, absolutely heavy stuff. So this deep dive, we're really trying to give you a shortcut through this really complex case, right? We'll pull out the key moments, the big revelations from her time on the stand. We'll try to understand the core arguments, the evidence that came out. And you know what this all might mean. And we've looked at a bunch of sources for this: Fox 5, New York, Access, Hollywood, NBC News, a good range, definitely. And what's really fascinating here is seeing how Cassie's story, these years of alleged abuse, how that's now being scrutinized in a legal setting. It forces this confrontation, doesn't it? With consent, coercion, trauma, all of it exactly, all those complexities laid bare. Okay, let's jump right into a really pivotal point, that $20 million settlement from the earlier civil suit. Her testimony about that sounded incredibly emotional, especially that line, "I'd give that money back if I never had to have freak-offs." Wow. So for you listening, let's explain what these freak-offs reportedly were and why that statement hit so hard. This really cuts to the heart of personal agency. Right from what Cassie testified, these freak-offs were described as drug-fueled sexual encounters. She felt pressured, even, coerced into things she'd give back that much money. It just highlights the deep damage she felt these caused to her sense of self, her control over her own body. It's a huge statement, it really is. She talked about them becoming routine, almost like a job, the setting up, doing it, then recovering, physically, emotionally. That's chilling. And the defense, it seems, they tried to sort of spin this differently. They tried to connect the settlement money to her canceled overseas tour, right? But her statement about the freak-offs just completely reframes that. It totally shifts it away from just a financial thing. It makes it about her fundamental right to choose her autonomy. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, her testimony really paints a picture of what experts call coercive control. Explain that a bit. It's basically a pattern of behavior designed to dominate someone, isolate them. So the defense trying to tie the money just to the tour, it kind of minimizes the alleged emotional, the psychological toll, right? It ignores the core allegation. Cassie's point seems clear. Without the alleged coercion into these freak-offs, she believes she'd still have had control over her own life, her career. Let's move on to some of the evidence that came up in court. There were some pretty striking things, definitely like that audio recording where Cassie confronts someone named Sujit about a video. Yeah, that was intense. It gives you this really disturbing peek into the kind of secrecy and control she alleges she was under. So, Sujit claimed he had a video of her doing sexual acts with someone other than Combs, apparently. And her reaction in that recording threatening him if it got out, it shows the immense pressure she felt, right? Absolutely pressure to keep these private moments hidden, seemingly because of Combs' influence and what might happen. Then, there were the text messages. This part seems complicated. Some texts apparently showed her sounding enthusiastic about the freak-offs. What she testified was basically to please Combs because she felt her own career was kind of taking a back seat. That's a tricky piece of evidence to weigh, isn't it? It really is. It raises this huge question about how you interpret communication in a relationship with such a power imbalance, and these allegations of coercion. So she's saying the enthusiasm wasn't real. That's her testimony that it was a strategy to placate him, keep the relationship going, especially as her own ambitions felt stalled. It highlights those complex sort of survival mechanisms that can kick in exactly where what someone says or does on the outside doesn't reflect how they feel inside. But the texts changed over time, didn't they? There was a later one from 2012, where she wrote something like, "I don't want to freak off for the last time. I want it to be the first time for the rest of our lives." Okay? But then the prosecution showed that later on, she clearly said she didn't want to do them anymore. So it's like a progression, a potential turning point. TT suggests maybe a shift in her thinking, her willingness to go along with it, that 2012 text, maybe trying to find some connection within that dynamic, perhaps, or navigate it somehow. But the later messages saying she wanted out, they signal her rejecting what she calls coercion. And the prosecution uses that to argue that even if she complied, sometimes it doesn't excuse later exploitation. Exactly, consent has to be ongoing. Then the defense brought up texts from after an alleged rape in 2018, including a heart emoji she sent Combs the next day. That feels like a classic defense tactic. It absolutely is trying to create doubt, question her credibility, highlighting anything that seems inconsistent with the abuse allegations, right? But this is so important to understand. Survivors of trauma often do stay in contact with alleged abusers. Why is that? So many reasons: fear, emotional dependency, maybe even hoping the abuse stops. It's complex. So, a single heart emoji doesn't automatically mean a rape didn't happen. Not at all. You can't isolate it like that. The key legal question is still, was consent freely given at the time of the act itself? Let's dig a bit deeper into the abuse allegations themselves. The physical violence claims are disturbing, particularly that 2016 incident at the Intercontinental Hotel, their surveillance video. Reports say the video shows Combs beating, dragging, kicking. That's potentially massive corroborating evidence. If the footage shows what's alleged, it's a powerful visual that backs up her story. And her text to him after that alleged assault, "I am not a rag doll. I am someone's child," is devastating. It speaks volumes about the dehumanization she says she felt. And there was other testimony too from singer Don Richard. Yes, he testified, claimed he saw Combs hit Cassie in the head with a frying pan. That adds another witness account to the claims of physical violence. Witness testimony like that is incredibly important in these cases. It helps build a picture, suggests a potential pattern of behavior. It's not just one person's word against another as if others saw things exactly. Combined with any physical or digital evidence, it strengthens the prosecution's narrative. So, the defense strategy, as we've kind of touched on, seems to be pinking her as willing, questioning the rape timeline. That seems to be the core, trying to establish reasonable doubt, suggesting maybe the freak-offs were consensual, maybe her memory of the rape is inaccurate. But again, you have to consider the power imbalance, and coercion isn't always overt threats. It could be subtle manipulation, pressure, leading someone to do things they don't truly consent to exactly, and trauma affects memory, sure. But that doesn't mean the abuse didn't happen. Let's talk about Cassie's personal struggles. She testified about rehab for opiate addiction. Yes, and said she's still on medication. It just highlights the potential long-term toll on her health. It underscores the deep, lasting consequences. This alleged abuse had substance use is often a coping mechanism for trauma. Her needing ongoing medication suggests the healing process is well ongoing. For sure, it's a journey, and we heard statements from her and her husband, Alex, about her strength, her healing. His statement was really striking. Cassie saved Cassie. I thought that was powerful too. It reframes it right from victimhood to resilience, agency, totally. It recognizes the immense strength it takes to break free from a situation like that. And their combined message seemed to be about hope for other survivors too. Using her experience hoping, it gives others strength of voice. It shows the potential for something positive to come out of this. Okay, now, the kill audio recording? That was startling. Definitely a jarring piece of evidence. Cassie threatening to kill Sujit, the guy who allegedly had that video of her in a freak-off. The language was extreme, extremely forceful. Yes, things like it is my effing life, and I will kill you. And I will kill you right now. I will kill you twice. It sounds really bad out of context, it does. But the reported context is key here. She allegedly felt under immense pressure from Combs to get that video back. So, the threats were maybe born out of desperation fear. That's the suggestion, a desperate attempt to protect herself from more exploitation, and maybe from Combs' reaction if the video surfaced. This then connects somehow to another incident involving an escort. A man named Jonathan Odie, he allegedly recorded a freak-off, was reportedly paid off, and signed an NDA. So another instance of alleged recordings and efforts to control them. And then there's this other twist. NBC News reported, though unconfirmed, a possible link goes on between a Jonathan, one who allegedly opened fire at Trump's Miami golf course, and mentions of Diddy in his interrogation video. Whoa. Okay, that's a lot. But the link isn't confirmed, not conclusively, by NBC News, no. But it definitely adds another layer of complexity, another thread in this whole web. It feels like a tangled web. Very much so, the alleged payoff and NDA with the escort fit the pattern. Cassie describes contouring information, silencing people, and the public interest in that interrogation video, even unconfirmed. People want to understand the full scope. Now, throughout Cassie's testimony, Combs himself was apparently very involved in court. Yeah, reports said he was passing notes, whispering to his lawyers, actively participating. What does that tell you? Well, it's normal for defendants to be engaged, but the level described suggests he's maybe playing a very direct role in strategy, reacting in real time to her testimony, and his team's strategy, as we said, seems focused on inconsistencies, portraying her as willing. Yeah, that seems to be the main thrust. Undermine her credibility. Point to any perceived contradiction. Emphasize things that could look consensual, which is common when there isn't much direct, independent proof of the abuse itself. It becomes about chipping away at the accuser story. There was also that brief mention his lawyer, possibly bringing up bipolar disorder in relation to his temper, which Combs himself has reportedly denied having in the past. So why bring it up now? What's the potential strategy there? Well, it could be an attempt to explain away the alleged violence, frame it as a result of a mental health issue, not intentional. Abuse, trying to lessen his culpability. Maybe, potentially. It's a controversial move, though, especially given his past denials. Okay, let's zoom out a bit. People are comparing this case to Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, that comparison keeps coming up. Do you see potential for that kind of accountability moment here for powerful figures in music, specifically hip-hop? I think there's definitely potential. Weinstein was a watershed moment. It showed even huge power doesn't guarantee immunity. The focus on Combs, the intensity of it. It does suggest things might be shifting towards more accountability in the hip-hop world too, and people like Cassie Ventura coming forward. It takes incredible bravery, immense bravery, and it can empower others to speak out too. And we are seeing other examples, aren't we? Recent lawsuits, allegations against other big names, Russell Simmons, LA. Read others, yes, Soulja, Boy Lizzo. It does feel like maybe a broader shift is happening, more willingness to challenge powerful figures. The whole #MeToo effect may be creating more space for these stories, likely increased awareness, maybe more media willingness to cover it seriously. The cultural landscape has definitely changed. Our legal expert drew parallels to the Bill Cosby case, particularly around corroborating witnesses and consent under power imbalances. That's a relevant comparison. In both cases, you have allegations over many years, often without direct witnesses to every single incident, right? So a key strategy becomes bringing in multiple accusers, people alleging similar patterns of behavior, to bolster the main accuser story and to challenge that defense narrative of consent, especially when there's a big power difference. Was any yes really a free and informed yes? Or was it due to manipulation, fear, coercion? And the therapists we consulted really hammered home the need to understand trauma and coercive control, such a vital point. It's not black and white, willing participant versus unwilling victim. It's way more nuanced coercive control. It's systematic, right? Grinding someone down through manipulation, intimidation, isolation. It messes with your sense of self, your ability to resist, and trauma makes people react in ways that might seem confusing from the outside, like staying in touch with an abuser, having mixed emotions, delaying reporting. These aren't signs the abuse didn't happen. They can be trauma responses, survival strategies. The historical context matters too, right? How society saw relationships like this back when it started versus now? Huge difference. Post hashtag, Me Too. There's just much more awareness, different standards for discussing consent and power. Things that might have been brushed off years ago are seen very differently. Now, for sure, survivors are perhaps more likely to be believed supported. Alleged abusers face more scrutiny. It changes how these cases are received. So thinking about the future, what impact could this case have on the hip-hop industry? The culture potentially significant. It could really fuel demands for more accountability, create safer spaces for women. That's the hope. Empower more people to speak out. Foster a culture where this alleged behavior isn't tolerated or ignored. Lead to real change. What about lyrics? Could we see hip-hop lyrics change because of cases like this? Well, our music expert pointed out that, music is expression. And legally, courts have generally protected artistic freedom in lyrics, right? First Amendment stuff. Unless lyrics are directly tied to committing a crime, it's unlikely laws will restrict content much. But the social pressure, the ethical conversation within the industry that might evolve. Okay? Now, one moment in Cassie's testimony really stood out as complex. Which one when she said she never hated Diddy and doesn't hate him? Now, yes, that reflects the really complicated emotions that can exist in these situations. That's not simple, is it not at all? Survivors can feel anger, pain, but also maybe lingering feelings from earlier, better times. It's messy. It doesn't cancel out her allegations, though. No, not necessarily. It just shows the complex emotional reality. And then one final layer, this report about her trying to sell a book to Combs. Right? A book apparently called Dark Times for $30 million, and Combs had previously mentioned her during his own Dark Times speech at the BET Awards in 2022. Yeah, that whole thing adds a lot more ambiguity, more questions about their interactions after the breakup. How might that be interpreted? Could be spun multiple ways. The defense might use it to suggest a financial motive on her part. Others might see it as her trying to control her own story. Maybe process things in a complex way. It's definitely something that will get more scrutiny. Okay, so just to wrap up, the key points from her testimony. 4 days. Deeply personal. Allegations of serious abuse, coercion, backed up by audio, texts that reported surveillance video, and her emotional statements, especially about the freak-offs, really drove home the alleged impact on her. And as you're processing all this, remember this case digs into these huge issues: power, consent, trauma. Yes, the long-lasting effects. Exactly. So thinking about all these layers, the power, the trauma, the conflicting stories, what does this case ultimately tell us about accountability, about the long road to healing for survivors? The heavy question. It really makes you think, doesn't it? It does. It's a stark reminder of how complex these situations are and how much we still need to grapple with these issues as a society. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive today. Yeah, thanks for listening. We definitely encourage you to keep following the story as it continues to unfold. It's an important one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And that's a wrap on today's Celebrity Scoop. If you had fun, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves a little Hollywood tea as much as you do. Remember, this isn't just my channel, it's our channel. We're building a real community here, and your support means the world. And hey, once we get monetized, I'll be doing gift card giveaways to give back to this amazing crew. So stick around, stay active, and you might just be one of the lucky ones.